From Dovasaurus Paleoknight's response video, Acer Thorns are the Stormcloak's racist debunked.
I'm just going to say that I am not going to be that respectful.
I'm out! When I make a video discussing a game's story, lore, gameplay, or any other aspect of the game, I expect all my commenters to maintain a civil and dignified tone when disagreeing with me. I do not have a problem with people disagreeing with my opinions on these games, but I do not tolerate blatant disrespect. Now, I always assumed that this was a reasonable requirement for participating in the community that is my channel's comment section. However, I recently realized that there is actually quite a controversial position. Now, before anyone says, well, I never thought it was controversial, I always thought it was a reasonable position, yeah, you obviously don't understand the meaning of the word controversial. Controversial doesn't mean it's an unpopular or minority opinion. Quite the contrary, it means that it is subject to quite a bit of debate. When I say that my policy on requiring civil etiquette is controversial, what I mean is that there are people who believe that there are times when it should be reasonable to be rude and obnoxious to someone. I recently created a video called J.K. Rowling is wrong for her transphobia, but we shouldn't cancel her for it. In that video, I argued that civility, not hostility, is the proper way to get J.K. Rowling to see reason. She ultimately may not see reason, but we certainly are not going to get her to see reason by being nasty towards her. I spoke from personal experience when dealing with what I like to refer to as bigotry bigots. That is, those who react to perceived bigotry with an equal amount of hostile, and sometimes even lethal, bigotry in their own right. For example, if you were to go out and lynch a person you believed to be a member of the KKK because you wanted to teach them a lesson about being a racist punk, then you would be a bigotry bigot. Well, while I was doing research for that video, I came across a YouTuber named Sarah Z, who had already made her own video addressing the topic. From the timestamp 4 minutes 50 seconds through 5 minutes 23 seconds of that video, she says the following.
And so she quite rightfully received criticism for her statements. A lot of people did indeed respond with anger and hostility, and honestly that's completely fair and they have the right to be angry. So you can imagine already the response she got from her defenders, which was, well, you expressed your point calmly and they expressed their point angrily, so that means you're right and they're the real intolerant ones. It's this liberal obsession with aesthetics where it doesn't actually matter what someone is saying, but how they say it. The problem with bigots isn't that the things they're saying are bigoted, but that they're very loud and rude about it.
She obviously believes that this position is quackery. She clearly is of the opinion that the bigotry bigots are in the right, and that their inability to express their opinions in anything but cuss-filled rants should not detract from how in the right they are. However, I disagree. Civility is always important when debating virtually anything, and a failure to follow that rule of etiquette should automatically mean that you are in the wrong and your opponent is right. If you cannot conduct yourself in a civil manner, you are effectively disqualified from the debate, which in turn means you automatically lose. Now, you might think that I am being unreasonably harsh in this manner, but am I really? Think about it this way. Imagine if a sports team gets disqualified for breaking the rules. That means they lose the game, right? Well, imagine if their fans still insisted they were the better team than the team who won the game by disqualification, that it was only by a technicality that they are considered the winner. Of course, because we will never see the end of that game, we will never know for sure which team would have bested the other. However, we must keep in mind that it is the fault of the disqualified team in the first place that we will never know the truth. Because of this, a disqualification may be viewed by some sports fans as an inherently unsatisfactory end to a game, and yet we need disqualifications, not just in our sporting events, but in all competitions and contests. Otherwise, there is no incentive to follow the rules. Sure, we can have lesser penalties such as free throws for lesser offenses, but if the offending team doesn't risk disqualification, then what's to stop them from simply interfering with the free throw? So that begs the question, why should civility be mandatory in discussions about video games or trans rights? And why should a lack of civility be met with immediate disqualification from the debate, meaning I am automatically right in the Skyrim Civil War debate and J.K. Rowling is automatically right in her supposedly transphobic comments? Well, today I would like to give you not one, not two, but 3 reasons why I believe that should be the standard practice for debating. Reason number 1. It's harmless, which means your inability to keep your cool is evidence that you have completely disconnected from reality. Now, that's a bit of a loaded point, so of course it's going to require some elaboration. First of all, let's talk about it being harmless. Now, I could understand you being angry at me if I were taking a side in a real-life civil war. Then I would be harming real people with real lives and with real families who really exist. However, the Skyrim Civil War is entirely fictional. Even if I choose the wrong side in that civil war, who the fuck is that hurting? Nobody. So why do you care so much that you would go to all the trouble to make not 1, not 2, but 3 videos cussing me out over the issue? Actually, I think I know why he does that, because he obviously considers this to be real life. He has so completely disconnected with reality that he sees no distinction between real life and a video game. With J.K. Rowling and her transphobia, it's a bit more complicated. She is expressing an opinion about a real-world issue. However, she also stated that she is prepared to protest with transgendered people and advocate for them to have equal rights to cis people. So she clearly isn't hurting anybody. Her claim that gender is real is little more than the transgender equivalent of heteronormativity, not homophobia. Some may argue that allowing J.K. Rowling to continue to stay relevant after her transphobic comments is itself harmful to transgendered persons because they allow her to perpetrate a harmful agenda. But even if that might be the case at some point in the near or distant future, which is still a stretch, the bottom line is that she hasn't harmed anyone yet. She hasn't committed any hate crimes yet. Rowling's current actions are, at worst, the bigotry equivalent of owning a gun, not the bigotry equivalent of shooting someone. So while her statements may not be related to a work of fiction, they still qualify as harmless. Now, if you can show proof that Rowling has indeed caused actual, tangible harm onto a specific person or group of transgendered persons, then yes, I would agree that killing it with kindness is not the appropriate response. In that case, kill it with fire, not kindness. But in order for me to agree to that, I want to see evidence of actual compensatory damages, not speculative damages. Until then, I do not believe a little civility is out of the question. Reason number 2. Being snooty is off-putting to audiences. We recently had the first presidential debate for 2020. Trump was completely rude the entire time, constantly interrupting Biden at every turn, and not letting Biden get a word in edgewise. The general consensus among pundits is that this caused Trump to lose that debate because it made him appear unprofessional and, in some places, afraid of how public opinion might sway if Biden were allowed to say his piece. This is a fairly recent event that was broadcast on national television, but the general principle still holds. If you're obnoxious and disrespectful to your opponent, audiences tend to gravitate more towards the guy who's keeping his cool rather than the guy who's acting all entitled. With that, let's turn to Dovasaurus Paleo Knight's trilogy of response videos. Now, I should point out that I did not watch beyond this point.
Before I actually go into everything that is downright wrong with your video, I'm just going to say that I am not going to be that respectful, since I saw how you acted towards the forgotten hero. No matter how you may deny this fact, he gave you solid lore data and facts.
And the reason why I did not watch beyond this moment is because, since he freely admitted to not being respectful in this discussion, I was not going to encourage that attitude with watch time. However, I would like you to notice this date right here. Part 1 of his trilogy was published on March 4th, 2019. I am writing this script on October 4th, 2020. So this trilogy has been on YouTube for a total of 580 days. In that time, all 3 videos have collectively gotten a grand total of 1,354 views. That's an average of 2 1/3 views per day, or an average of 0.78 views per video per day. By contrast, my original video, the one he is replying to, and the one he considers to not only be wrong, but so overwhelmingly wrong that he has the right to be a complete dick to me, because that's just how wrong I am, has gotten 4,625 views in that same time period. And that's not even counting the views this video is going to get in between the writing of this script and it ultimately getting published on YouTube. That's more than 3 times as many views on this one video that this jackass has on his entire trilogy of videos combined. Now, I know what you are all thinking right now. Just because his videos don't have as many views as mine doesn't mean he's wrong and I'm right. The YouTube algorithm is a complete mystery to all but the highest ranking YouTube executives, so our disproportionate success could be due to any number of unknowable factors. And that is true, at least to an extent. While it is true, we do not know everything about how the YouTube algorithm works, but one thing we do know for certain is that the algorithm tends to promote videos less if they have very low audience retention. In other words, if a viewer clicks on a video, watches only a few seconds of the video, and then immediately clicks away, YouTube likely isn't going to promote the video as much. That much we do know about the YouTube algorithm. So when his entire trilogy of videos gets less than 1/3 as many views as my one video, especially when he opens the video with a confession that he is going to take an attitude that is scientifically proven to be off-putting to a majority of impartial people, then I honestly take that as an indication that people clicked on his videos, found his obnoxious attitude to be, well, obnoxious, and then clicked away. So while the view count may not be definitive proof of who is right or wrong, it is certainly a strong indicator of who the majority of people choose to side with, which is just as important, if not more important, to proving someone wrong as simply being right in the first instance. But okay, let's assume you don't even really care about convincing anybody. Let's assume you don't care about your video getting views, and let's be completely honest, if you take that excuse especially with a position you feel especially passionate about. You're honestly trying to convince yourself of your own indifference first and foremost. Let's assume you honestly think that being a dick is more satisfying than actually convincing people of your position. And again, convince yourself of that before you try to convince me. Even if we take out all of that, there is still a reason to be civil in these discussions. Reason number 3. Rude people are too blinded by their anger to often see what is literally right in front of them, let alone see how their points might have flaws too. I first mentioned this aspect of human psychology in my video, In Defense of Digital Homicide. During that video, I showed you this screenshot of an old forum post made by Digital Homicide. Jim Sterling, the man who was most famous for taking Digital Homicide to task over their alleged shady business practices, used this forum post as visual proof that Digital Homicide treats his customers with a complete lack of decorum, respect, or even human decency, instead preferring to cuss his customers out and ban them from the forums over the slightest criticism. However, when I look at the words Digital Homicide used in this screenshot, I see quite literally the complete opposite. I see Digital Homicide being quite professional and quite courteous with his handling of this customer grievance. In that video, I opined that Jim Sterling was so overcome with rage and hatred towards Digital Homicide that he literally could not see what was literally right in front of him. Let's take that idea and apply it to the two subjects I've been discussing this entire video. My video about the Stormcloaks being racist and J.K. Rowling's supposed transphobic views. A few months ago, I went to a subreddit called Ask LGBT in order to discuss trans rights. One thing led to another, and a bigotry bigot by the name of Actual Pegasus defended trans rights by saying, and this is a direct quote, "Trans women were never men. They are girls from birth that were accidentally assigned the wrong gender by the doctor/midwife/nurse delivering them." What? Now, to be absolutely 100% clear, I do not think there is even the slightest thing wrong with being transgender. I absolutely support trans rights, but dear God, did you even think about what you were saying for even a second? Was there literally any brain-to-mouth filter whatsoever? First of all, identifying the sex of a newborn baby immediately after it was born is not the least bit difficult. You don't even need expert medical knowledge to identify a naked baby's biological sex. You just need to know what a penis looks like compared to a vagina. That's it. So if that were really what caused transgender people to exist, I find it impossible to believe that transgender people would be anywhere near as common as they actually are. At most, I would expect that kind of mistake to happen once per century for the entire population of the world, and even that's pushing the boundaries of what I would consider a reasonable frequency of occurrence. But even barring that, if what you are saying is true, and it really is just a clerical error, why do trans people end up receiving hormone therapy or sex reassignment surgery in order to fix this problem? If it's just a clerical error, that could be fixed with some simple fucking whiteout. Look, bro, I get it. I totally get that you want to defend trans rights. I absolutely understand that you want to show everyone that there is nothing wrong with being transgender, and I absolutely agree with that position. However, in your overzealousness to drive this point home, a point I agree with, mind you, you ended up giving a description of the condition that is so laughably inaccurate that it arguably deserves just as much ridicule as the very bigotry you are attempting to stamp out. So, there's an example in regards to the transphobia debate. Let's jump back over to Skyrim and the Stormcloaks. Now, I wasn't kidding when I said I didn't watch Dovasaurus Paleonite's video beyond the opening segments, so I honestly don't know exactly what arguments he is attempting to put forth. However, he mentioned a guy named The Forgotten Hero and said that this other guy gave me solid lore, data, and facts no matter how you may deny this fact. That is one guy who I did engage with, so let's take a look at what The Forgotten Hero has to say. Now, for the record, you cannot see this comment conversation on the video anymore, since I deleted the comments and blocked him for trolling and being uncivil. However, I still have email notifications proving that these comments used to exist. Okay, to make a long story short, one of the arguments the Forgotten Hero gave to defend his position of Ulfric being racist is how the giant of Steamcrag Camp had killed a Khajiit caravan. You can even see the caravan itself at the giant camp, and instead of bringing that giant to justice for his murder, all he did was put up a sign that told people to keep out. To counter this, I gave the argument that because the government of Eastmarch had put up a sign outright stating that the giant here was bequeathed this land, then the giant obviously had the right to defend that land from trespassers. The Khajiit caravan was a trespasser, and so it paid the price for trespassing. Well, the Forgotten Hero fired back with the argument that giants are nothing but animals, mere beasts who have no right to own land. I mean, never mind the fact that the government of Eastmarch has clearly recognized this giant as the landowner and warned people to stay away, but why worry about in-game documents when a cussing contest is easier for you to win? Anyway, I replied to that by referring to him to the Heavy Armor Skill Book, Orsinium and the Orcs, which stated that yes, even mere beasts, such as pigs or slaughterfish, do indeed have the right to own land in Tamriel, so long as they have the papers, whatever that means. It's not terribly clear what exactly it means to have the papers, so clearly his position that giants have no right to own land in Tamriel is quite simply false. However, the Forgotten Hero just can't accept that he's wrong, so he fires back at me with two counter-arguments. First, he says that I got the title of the book wrong. Logic chopping a bit, don't you think? But even then, he retorts by asking me to show proof that giants, in particular, have standing to own land. Oh my god, this guy is impossible. Okay, I suppose I could show you the official warning posted on the border of the camp, but I'll tell you what, I'll show you proof that giants in particular have standing to own land, not that this proof is hard to come by, just as soon as you show me some proof that this well-established lore, which states in no uncertain terms that all races of Mundus, literally every single one of them, somehow does not include giants within its otherwise all-encompassing definition. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what Dovasaurus Paleonite refers to as giving me solid lore, data, and facts, no matter how I may deny this fact. So, as you can see from these three examples, when you become so offended by someone else's position that you feel entitled to treat them like shit because that's just how wrong they are, taking that attitude has the effect of you making arguments that are just as preposterous as you believe your opposition to be. Only you don't realize it until after it's too late, if even then, because you were so overcome with rage and hatred towards your opponent that you can't see what is literally right in front of you. You can't even see the words that you yourself have written. Even if you don't care that your opponent's position isn't hurting anybody. Even if you don't care about scaring off potential recruits to your cause. Even if the only thing you care about is simply being objectively right, your attitude still hinders your ability to be right. By being unable to accept dissenting viewpoints, you are directly undermining the very thing that you believe gives you the right to behave this way in the first place, the alleged infallibility of your position. Your unwavering belief in the absoluteness of you being right literally causes you to become less right. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Not one, not two, but three completely objective and scientifically proven reasons why I do not tolerate uncivil discourse in the comments of my videos, even if you believe you are right and I am wrong. But here's a bonus reason for you. You know the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Would you like it if someone cussed you out over a dissenting opinion? If not, then don't do it to other people. And with that, I bid you all adieu. Acer Thorn out. Peace!